G'day folks. Well, I've done a bit of scrubbing and cleaning and I've got the block cleaned up and the sump assembly. Very nice. Everything's in pretty good condition, even the main bearing. This one's a lot better than the very grubby, dirty old block. So yeah, this one's a keeper. The camshaft I couldn't get out, so it stayed in there. I've just pressure fed it oil after washing, just blown all the water out, and it's fine, it'll live. The crank is from the old, very well used engine, and I'm just cleaning out the little oil reservoir or whatever you call it inside here. Oops, there we go, there's another problem. I've got it full of brake cleaner at the moment, and all this muck is coming out. There's a fair chamber inside here. You can see the grub screw, but it's very heavily staked in place. I'm not keen on trying to remove it, so I've been feeding this wire down inside the main journal, or the main oil gallery I should say, and breaking up the sludge. I'm guessing by the time the engine fires up, the oil pump pushes everything in here, but given the rotational forces, it acts like a centrifugal separator. So it's actually separating all the muck out before it even gets to the main bearing. As you can see, some little flaky bits of metal and other stuff in there. I'm surprised the main on that rod is so smooth and shiny. It's in really good nick. I wonder if it was intentional for this to actually act as a separation centrifuge. But either way, it needs to be cleaned out, so I'm just going to keep flushing it with brake cleaner or carburetor cleaner, whatever I've got on hand. I've got a surplus of brake cleaner at the moment, so that's what I'm using, and it's working. It's coming out. So yeah, cylinder barrel soaking. I've got the valves out. They're probably usable. I'll also pull the valves out of the barrel from the original engine, the damaged one. Yeah, from the original one from this block, I'll pull that one off as well and see what's best. Yeah, it'll be fine. This thing's going to work quite well. If this doesn't clean up properly, I'll try and unstake that grub screw and take it out, but persistence is going to work. I'll just keep persistently flushing it, blowing it out in compressed air and so on. It'll be fine. Okay, next day. Cylinder's been soaked and cleaned. I got rid of all the paper wasps and gave it a very light hone. It's okay, it's not the best, but definitely the best out of the lot, and I've actually got pretty good ring gaps. I've got a good set of rings out of the both pistons. The ring gap's not perfect, but it's pretty good. Should be tighter, but hey, it's the best I've found. Some of the other rings were trash. One of them broke trying to get it out. So I got only got two compression rings. I've got a spare oil ring which has got a gap of about almost 10 mil, so that one's going. Replacing with ones with about a 5 mil gap, so they're not the best, but they'll do. I've still got to extract what's left of the very well seized top ring out, because it's had water get in there and just corroded into place. Aluminium oxide is a horrible thing to try and deal with. And now I'm just doing valves. Might take this down to my local mower shop and just see if he can grind them in properly, because the old valves are heavily recessed. You can see how badly lipped they are. Particularly the intake, that's the inlet valve. The lip itself's clean, it'd work. That one's not though. It's got a very bad deep pit on that edge. So that's junk. This one's lightly pitted, but nothing that couldn't get ground out. And that one's fine. But the thing is, the seats are also contoured to suit the old valves, so they have to be ground or machined to suit the new ones. So yeah, there's a little bit of work to do. I might just take it by the local mower shop, see if he can do a quick resurface and grind on it. If not, I'll just get the cordless drill out and some coarse lapping compound and just go to town on it. Just coat the stems in copper never sees and spin them up. I've done it before. I've done it a couple of times and it works just fine, but these ones are a bit of an exception. They are quite worn. Same with the guides. I don't believe the guides are replaceable. Oh no, they are replaceable. Hell, I wonder if I punch the guides out of the other cylinder head they'll work. Probably will. Thing is getting them out intact. I don't think they'll withstand enough pounding to come out intact and not damaged. But anyway, the loose guides aren't bad. I've seen far worse and they still work, so I'll live with the loose guides. I just want to make sure that this thing has compression. And again, this surface needs a bit of a clean up. Okay, well, after a bit of valve grinding, they've come up alright. I couldn't even find my container of valve grinding paste. I ended up using some dried stuff on the crown of my little mixing bowl. Just add a bit of water to it and it's good again. It's only the fine stuff, but did the job. Cut it back enough to make a seal. All the way around. That'll do just fine. All good. If valve clearance is a bit tight because they're recessed, I can always grind the stem down a tiny bit. That's not hard. Either way, all good. Ready to go back together again. Or at least refit valve springs anyway. I've got a bit more to do on this. But that's good. Alright, definitely one of the easiest side valves to change the valves in. All I did was just slip the spanner in there, compress the spring down and slip the collet back on. Piece of cake. Much harder in the engine because you can't actually get in from the top from here and slip that collet back in. So yeah, it's definitely worth removing the cylinder if you're trying to redo the valves. But that's it. Simple. Very simple. It's crude, it's effective, and it's worked for over 100 years. Easily over 100 years. Good old side valve engines. I can't remember when the original side valve internal combustion engine was developed, but yeah, it's been around a very long time. And they work and they still work. You can still buy them in the stores essentially. You still buy garden equipment with old side valve style engines on them. Modern technology, very lightweight and cheaply made, but they're still side valve engines. Just one all cast block and modern ignition systems, very lightweight, splash lube, that's about it. That guy's testing his engine. There we go, freshly ringed and drizzled in a nice coating of auto-trans fluid. It can stay there for now. This rag isn't the cleanest, but everything will get another wipe down before it goes in and it'll be all good. So that's that done. I guess next I should look at probably putting the cylinder on, because the easiest way to fit the piston is up through the cylinder. So I might actually insert the piston into the cylinder and then look at seating the cylinder on the block together. It's a lot easier to come from underneath because it's got that nice big taper on it, whereas from the top you really need a ring compressor, although these rings aren't that tight that I can't just use my fingers. Yeah, we'll see what happens. Okay, well, the crank's in. Everything's pre-lubed with a bit of moly lube, assembly lube. We are ready to drop the cylinder on and see how everything goes. Well, actually I've got to fit the piston to the cylinder first. Everything else is pretty happy. I might a little bit of moly lube on that cam, although it's already oiled. Thrust bearings are all within, well, reasonable spec. I've got the two best of the lot. They came out of the oldest of the two engines actually. The ones out of this engine, well, I think there was only one. I think one of them had already been robbed. They were brass or copper alloy bearing and they were severely stepped. The other two that I'm using at the moment were not. There's no step on them. And they're, yeah, within spec. They're good. So, yeah, Mr. Piston needs to go in next. Lovely. I am assembling this with Grey Max gasket maker. I'm not cutting gaskets apart from this front part's going to be a bit of a challenge because I've got oil galleries, but I can work around that. I'll see what I can do. Yeah, it's a little bit tricky, but it'll work. I have had to grind the valves. They're excessively tight, like to the point where as soon as I put the head down with the cam not trying to open any valve, the like in this position here with the cam lobes well out of the way, both valves are open. I could just free spin them in the head. I know I'm missing a very paper thin gasket from here, but that clearance is still way too tight, so both of them have had about 0.2, 0.3 millimeters ground off them at the least, just to open it up a bit. Excessive clearance is a lot better than tight clearance, because tight clearance doesn't give you good compression and it just eats the cam. So it's not rocket science, it'll work, I guarantee it. If this thing doesn't work again, well, I'll give up. You won't see me try and fix one of these again. No, this'll work. It always does. Hell, it's only a little internal combustion engine. It's not that hard. And you can get away with a surprising amount of bodgery without butchering. I'm not butchering, I'm just bodging. It will work. Alright, looking better. Piston does come up just shy of the top of the deck. It doesn't protrude past due to the absence of the gasket, which was basically nothing by the time it was worn out and burned up. That's good. Sealant will work fine. I just got to get the big end cap on there and check the valve timing, because again I'm mixing and matching crank and cam and everything, but the marks all line up. We're pretty good. So yeah, let's get this big end cap on. And yeah, just make sure everything's timed up right. But yeah, overall, good, very good. Okay, so the cylinder head is now clean, ready to go back on. But I think I'll do the lower crankcase, the sump, first. Get all that sorted out. You can sit flat on the deck on a thick layer of rags, that'll be safe. Then I'll make sure everything's working properly, and then we'll bolt the head back on. Well, actually no, I can't spin it too much because the thrust bearing on the back there, as I found out last night, comes loose and the dowel pin doesn't line up anymore, and it causes some issues. So yeah, I have to be very careful. I think I have to put head and sump on, then get the side cover on there. So that needs good cleanup. My local lawnmower guy has seals for it. I got a message off him today. I'll go and pick them up tomorrow. He said he has seals for it, which is great. Now I've got to get this thing to work properly. And again, I'll pull the oil pump apart and make sure that that's within spec. Same with that one there. The really dirty one might have better parts, might not. I don't know. But yeah, there are more than enough parts between the two of these side covers to make a good working unit. So yeah, very good. Alright, looking a bit better. Sump's bolted on. Very minimal amount of sealant. The oil gallery's clear. It's been isolated and blown out with compressed air and solvent. Pretty good. Getting these front galleries clear are going to be the hard part. Especially given I originally intended on machining an O-ring groove into the face, setting O-rings in there and then putting a bit of sealant around the outer edge, so the whole thing would seal up perfectly and I wouldn't need the paper gasket. Especially given the thrust bearings are a bit worn, it could do with that extra bit of well, the front cover being closer to the centre of the crankshaft. But I completely forgot about that and it's a bit late now, so yeah. But it's a good little piece of engineering. Yeah, not too bad. Head's all cleaned up, so next up's paint the head gasket with some very thick, sticky aluminum paint, and then stick it down and torque it down. Bit of an old Very old trick. Paint it with very sticky aluminium powder based paint. Let it tack off and lay it on the deck and torque her up. The aluminium powder fills the voids, fills all the scratches and things, and works very well. Works very well. I've done it on plenty of engines and it's never failed me. Yeah, this stuff here, very, very thick. You don't really mix it up. You mix up a bit of it, but you don't even bother shaking the whole can up. You just scrape the thick, settled aluminum powder mix off the bottom of it and paint it over the head gasket. And stick it down, torque it down, and just let it cure. Works a treat. Okay, head gasket time. I'm giving it a good coating of thick paint on the very bottom of the tin, the nice sludgy stuff. And this is coming from a BMC mechanic. My neighbour is a retired BMC mechanic, British Motors, and I believe he used most of this tin doing BMC copper head gaskets, and he's never had one fail. And he gave me the can and a lot of manuals and other stuff, and said good luck. So far I haven't had failure either, so I'm just going to let this tack off, then turn it over, lay it on top of the deck and line it up, and then I'll dab a bit on the other side, let it tack off, and yeah, bolt the head down. Should be just fine. This is how they would have done it in the 1940s. Mind you, back then they probably had original OEM head gaskets in the wrapper, so yeah, I don't have that luxury. Okay, so it's front cover time. I've got the oil pump apart. Nice little gear pump. I've marked everything, or at least this one here, which way is down. It looks like it goes both ways, so I've just gently sanded a mark onto it. But they essentially just drop in there. Tiny little gear pump, little baby thing. Clearances and wear and tear seem to be okay. I'm not going to swap it for the other one. So he's out. Oil pressure regulator. Just a little ball and spring type pressure regulator. I'm going to try and get the magneto drive and governor out, and then we'll give this thing a good clean up. I should even be able to O-ring these if I can counterbore it properly. I don't think there's enough meat in this thing to do it though. Yeah. I might even pull the studs out of the old block, the dirty one, and use that to stick a gasket template down and just make a new paper gasket. It's a lot easier than trying to seal these up without getting sealant in the oil passages, especially that one there. A little glob of grey max would plug that up completely and starve the can of oil, so this one's going to be careful. It's, yeah. Oh wow, there's a bit of rust on that bearing. Definitely down to metal, and that's the better out of the lot too. Oh well, as long as there's oil flowing over it, it'll be fine. Not like this engine's going to see 20 years of hard use after this. I'll try and get that bolt out too. It's a bit of a pain. Might see if I can salvage the other front cover, I don't know. We'll see what's better. This one does seem to have the better main bearing. Okay, so making the front cover gasket, I've taken the old block. You can use the new block, but it's easier to do this one because I've pulled the studs out. And I've screwed gasket paper to it after painting it with a bit of gasket cement. Just a very thin, even coating. Screwed the gasket paper down and just laid a rag over a mallet and just tap it down all over it, and away you go. You get a bit of an outline. You can do this with marking blue as well, but I've used gasket cement, and it should give me a rough idea of what goes where. Oil galleries. Yeah, it's clear enough. It will work. And that's just a bit of gasket paper. I was going to use cereal box, but My dad had some gasket paper in his van. He's still visiting from Queensland and he's quite interested in this project. So he donated some gasket paper. And yeah, pretty good. So this can go back into storage and this can get cut out. Alright, there you go. There's the gasket. I used a wad punch to knock out the holes. Not everyone has one of those. You could use a knife if you're very careful. I'd recommend just buying a wad punch and a decent hammer. But the rest of it is just, yeah, box cutter. Nice and easy. So I'll give it a bit of a wipe down with solvent and a good coat with gasket adhesive, and we'll go from there. Yeah, Loctite hard setting gasket maker. That'll work quite well. First up, I've got to get the I'll get the oil pump and everything back together and make absolutely sure everything's set properly before I do it, because it's a fairly permanent assembly. I could get the non-hard setting stuff, which might be adequate for this, but I don't know. Shouldn't be too bad.